Welcome to the deep dive. Today we are tackling a profile known for, well, for lighting up every single room they enter. We're talking about the type so defined by energy and passion that we're calling them the number three. But the real ride today is finding out what happens when that dazzling spotlight turns inward. So our sources for this deep dive, they really focus on profiles that define identity through core energy and motivation. So when we say number three, we're talking about that highly expressive, intensely charismatic archetype. And we've got a fantastic stack of materials that really pull back the curtain on this personality. We're moving past that brilliant outward image and straight into the engine room of their psyche. Our mission for you, the listener, is to really get the profound tension at the heart of the three. It's this gap, right, between their infectious, charismatic performance and the intensely sensitive, deep internal world they work so hard to keep hidden.
Oh, absolutely. That tension is the defining feature of this entire profile. If we just establish the core theme right at the start, the number three is fundamentally focused on, well, expression, emotion, voice, joy. And finding meaning through creativity, it's more than just a preference for being social. It is a deep existential drive. I mean, they are not here to simply survive life. They are here to express it. Their whole drive is just pure kinetic emotional output.
Okay, let's unpack that kinetic energy, because when we look at the inner world of the three, it's not a calm lake, is it? It's a living tidal system.
Yeah.
Our sources really highlight just how quickly and dramatically they experience emotion. Their life feels like a constant wave.
Exactly. A wave is the perfect metaphor. They feel excitement so easily, but then sadness just sinks in so deeply. They'll grab inspiration in a flash, but then they feel disappointment just as sharply. These emotions, they don't move along some measured, predictable line. They come in waves, not lines. So they feel pulled by the tide of the moment, and that creates this relentless internal pressure.
So if they're constantly riding these intense waves, does that ever make them feel unreliable? Or maybe unsure of which emotion is truly authentic versus just a reaction?
That is the core conflict, absolutely. The pressure they feel is incredibly high. It often manifests as this thought like, if I don't express this, I'll explode, or I feel everything so strongly that it just demands an outlet. And to your point, this is why they struggle with stillness. What's fascinating is how they experience silence. For many of us, silence is restorative, it's peace. For the three, silence that lasts too long is felt as heavy, almost oppressive, because it stops that necessary flow of their internal energy. They need the air moving, the sound echoing, the emotion vibrating, just to feel okay.
So emotional input isn't a distraction for them, it's the actual fuel for their mental engine. And that connects directly to how their mind works, which is so different from the logical types.
Oh, completely. We have to just throw out the idea of dry, linear processing here. Their mental landscape is highly imaginative. They don't think in sequences. They think in images, in stories, feelings, and these powerful associations. Their mind connects dots, but it does so creatively, not sequentially or linearly. They see the end result almost spontaneously because the journey to get there was all internal and imaginative.
Right. Which explains why their insights often appear just fully formed and kind of surprising to other people. But what does that mean for their daily life? I mean, what happens when they're forced into a box?
They really struggle. They actively dislike dry logic, cold systems, any environment with no emotional life or, room for play. They need that emotion to think clearly, to make those creative connective leaps. If you ask a three to follow some cold step-by-step procedure without any emotional resonance or context, I mean, if they can't see the human purpose or the story behind the system, they just shut down. It's like demanding a painter use only grayscale when they require color to even begin sketching.
That need for color and emotional velocity, that brings us perfectly to their outward presentation. Because with this powerful, constant emotional engine operating inside, what comes out is, well, it's pure magnetic charisma.
Okay, that's it exactly. The outer persona is a showstopper, and it's very successful. To others, the three appears intensely expressive, warm, funny, charismatic, just emotionally alive. And they get all this consistent feedback that reinforces the image, right? People say, you light up the room or you make things feel alive. They become the essential catalyst for fun and engagement in any group.
Okay, but here's where we need to slow down because the sources are so clear on this. The performance is so convincing. The joy is so infectious that the crucial insight here is that most people do not see how sensitive the three truly is behind that facade. That deep vulnerability is often missed entirely. It's like they're wearing their enthusiasm as armor.
And that armor is exhausting to maintain. This outward expression isn't just incidental either. It has to translate into their professional life. For a 3, work is not just a job. It absolutely must involve expression, communication, creativity, and emotional engagement. If they're stuck doing something purely repetitive and analytical without any outlet for their voice, they won't just get bored, they will genuinely wither.
So where do they thrive? The list is pretty telling. It's fields like media, teaching, marketing, art, storytelling, content creation. These are all roles where their emotional velocity and their ability to connect dots creatively are, well, they're assets. They are the key performance indicators.
And conversely, they struggle profoundly with repetitive clock-punching work, emotionless environments, and roles where they get no feedback. They need that mirror. They need to see that their creative energy is landing and resonating with someone.
Okay, so if the work has to be emotionally engaging, let's talk about the payoff. If the drive isn't money or dry analysis, what's the currency for the 3?
That brings us to their relationship with money, which is fascinating because it's truly secondary to the expression itself. They don't chase money directly. They chase that feeling of fulfilling, authentic expression. And the sources note that money often follows, but only when their expression is grounded and consistent.
So the struggle only comes when that creativity lacks structure, or when inspiration isn't translated into actual output. They can have a brilliant, world-changing idea every 5 minutes powered by that rush of inspiration. But if they don't develop the discipline to commit to finishing one, the well just runs dry.
Yes. It's the difference between feeling the emotion and channeling the emotion into a tangible result.
And that distinction, feeling versus channeling, that's never more apparent than in their relationships, is it? Because that need for validation and recognition is most acutely felt there.
It really is. How they love is highly energetic and relational. It's through words, attention, emotional sharing, and playfulness. They're the partners and friends who infuse interactions with joy and make you feel so intensely seen and involved.
And their core needs are simple but vital: to be seen, heard, and deeply appreciated.
When they feel that their expressive efforts are meeting a receptive, non-judgmental audience, they are at their best.
But when that emotional output is dismissed, or when they're ignored, that's where the struggle begins. They just can't tolerate emotional suppression or feeling dismissed. If they offer their heartfelt expression and it's met with a shrug, well, it's devastating, because their whole identity is tied up in that expression.
And this failure to connect leads us to what our sources call the performance of pain, which is just critical to understanding their shadow side. When a 3 is hurt or wounded or grieving, they may automatically perform happiness. They'll joke instead of grieve, or withdraw emotionally while staying intensely social. They might be the dazzling life of the party while completely shattered inside because showing genuine, messy sadness feels too vulnerable.
So how does that actually look? Like, if they're at a party and they've just been through something awful, are they aware that they're acting?
It's more of an instinct, I think. They're trying to regulate their environment back toward joy. In that scenario, they're probably the person telling the funniest stories, holding court, making sure everyone else is comfortable. They're keeping the emotional volume high externally to drown out the internal pain. And the psychological cost of that is just enormous. They're spending so much energy maintaining a facade that prevents them from actually processing the emotion.
This avoidance mechanism, it leads us right into the shadow of the number 3. What happens when they are so overwhelmed or wounded that they stop expressing authentically and start performing just for applause?
Right. When that imbalance hits, they become dramatic, they avoid any seriousness, they seek external validation constantly, and they just scatter their energy across too many unfinishable projects. They are performing instead of feeling. They're seeking the applause to fill an emotional void that they are terrified to face head-on.
And that void is driven by a profound, ultimate fear.
Yes. The ultimate fear driving all of this behavior is pretty simple. Being invisible, being misunderstood, or, most terrifyingly, emotional emptiness. A flat line. If they stop feeling and expressing, they feel like they stop existing in the way they understand existence.
And this is why the sources say so clearly that joy becomes a mask. It's a mechanism to hide deeper pain or vulnerability, and it allows them to keep getting that external validation without having to risk true, messy, authentic honesty. And if joy is a mask, that means even when they are genuinely happy, they might still be overperforming it, blurring the line between an authentic feeling and the need to get validation for the feeling itself.
Precisely. They're constantly seeking validation for their feelings, which prevents them from owning their feelings. So what does the path to maturity look like for them? How do they transition from this dazzling, volatile performer to an integrated, powerful creator? It all comes down to integration and consistency.
So the mature 3, they learn to express honestly, even if that honesty is boring or sad. They learn that stillness isn't heaviness, and they allow silence to be peaceful. They channel emotion into their craft, and maybe most importantly, they learn to create consistently. The creativity is no longer just driven by that spontaneous wave of inspiration.
And the functional difference is profound. They start to use joy as a bridge to connect with others, not as an escape from their own feelings. They learn they don't have to fear heaviness, they learn to integrate it. And that depth makes their expression richer, more resonant, and frankly, stronger.
It changes everything for them, their creative output and their relationships. Our sources give us some great context for this. For instance, when a 3 works with a more disciplined profile, like a 4, they move towards creative discipline. Why is that pairing so effective?
Well, because the 4 brings that capacity for deep introspection and a focus on form and depth that the 3 naturally lacks. The 3 provides the energy and the audience connection, while the 4 teaches the 3 how to sit with the difficult feelings and channel them into finished, complex work.
And similarly, a 3 working with a more assertive, grounded profile, like an 8, finds a structure for expressive leadership.
The 8 provides the accountability and the boundaries. We talked about the 3 needing structure, remember?
Right.
If you give a 3 a totally blank slate, it's not freedom, it's a panic attack. They need those fence posts to run between. The 8 gives them the fence posts, and that allows their expression to become focused and powerful rather than scattered and purely reactive. I think the fundamental difference is summed up beautifully. A 3 alone burns bright and fast. A 3 integrated burns warm and lasting.
So if you recognize this energy in yourself, or if you manage someone who fits this profile, let's talk about the 5 essential steps for mastery. These are actionable insights to shift that energy from scattered performance to grounded creation.
Okay, first, they have to learn to feel emotions without performing them. This means sitting with the ugly, boring, or heavy feelings without immediately needing to spin them into a dramatic story for someone else. You have to just let the feeling be there.
That is probably the hardest step. It demands vulnerability without the immediate reward of attention. Okay, second, you must create on schedule, not on mood. This is the structure that grounds their creativity. Discipline allows the muse to visit every day, regardless of how high that wave of inspiration is.
Third, let depth coexist with joy. Don't assume that seriousness or structure negates your warmth or your ability to connect. The two are complementary, not contradictory. You can be deeply thoughtful and still light up the room.
Fourth, and this is the big one, they must learn to finish what they start. The scattering of energy has to stop. That output, the completed project, the finished canvas, the published piece, that is the ultimate validation, far more than the initial applause for the idea.
And finally, the most critical step for mastery. Validate yourself first. Stop looking externally for the proof that you are seen and appreciated. When the 3 learns to appreciate their own authentic, unperformed self, the need for the mask disappears completely, and their real sustainable power is unlocked.
What a journey. From that constant wave of emotions and the high pressure to express everything, to the dazzling charisma and the shadow of the mask of joy, and finally arriving at authentic, consistent creation. The immense energy of the 3 is truly unlocked when they choose that path of self-validation over external applause.
And that leaves us with a provocative thought for you to consider. If a number 3's greatest fear is emotional emptiness, what hidden strength do they find in allowing themselves to experience the heaviness they usually try to mask? How does true, non-oppressive silence eventually become the foundation for the most meaningful and lasting expression?